Welcome the spicy lady. Have you ever wondered why the kindest woman you know can suddenly become the hardest person to manipulate? People often see the change, but they rarely understand what caused it. They say she has become cold, difficult, or impossible to read. They assume she woke up one day and decided to push everyone away. But the truth is far more interesting than that. A spicy lady Sigma does not become savage because she stops caring. She becomes savage because she finally starts paying attention. She notices who only remembers her when they need something. She notices who mistakes her patience for weakness and her kindness for unlimited access. Most importantly, she notices how much of herself she has been giving away just to keep other people comfortable. That is the turning point. What changes is not her heart. What changes is her understanding of people, relationships, and herself. She begins to realize that being a good person should never require constantly ignoring her own needs. She learns that protecting her peace is not selfish. It is necessary if she wants to live an honest and healthy life. I end this video. We are going far beyond the usual advice and uncover the deeper 7 psychological shifts that happen when a spicy lady Sigma goes full savage mode. Some of these truths may challenge the way you think about kindness, loyalty, and strength. So, make sure you watch until the very end, because each point builds on the last. And together, they reveal why this transformation is often misunderstood by almost everyone who witnesses it. Now, let's get started, gents. Number 1, she treats broken trust like broken glass. She doesn't glue shattered trust back together because she knows repaired glass still cuts. One of the hardest lessons a spicy lady Sigma learns is that broken trust is very different from a simple mistake. When trust is damaged, most people immediately start talking about forgiveness. They say things like, everyone deserves another chance, or if you forgive them, everything can go back to normal. But life teaches her something much more complicated. Forgiveness and access are not the same thing. She eventually realizes that she can let go of anger without reopening the same door that caused the pain. Think about a glass that falls onto the floor. You can carefully pick up the pieces. You can even glue them back together. From a distance, it may look almost the same. But would you drink from it every single day without wondering if one sharp edge might still be there? Probably not. That is how she begins to see broken trust. It is not about holding a grudge. It is about respecting what experience has already taught her. Imagine a close friend who repeatedly shares private conversations that were never meant to leave the room. Every time they are confronted, they apologize. They promise it will never happen again. For a while, she believes them. Then it happens again and again. Eventually, she forgives them because carrying resentment only weighs her down. But something changes. She no longer shares the deepest parts of her life with that person. The friendship may continue, but the level of access does not. Many people misunderstand this decision. They think she is being unforgiving. In reality, she is simply refusing to ignore evidence. Trust is not rebuilt by emotional speeches. It is rebuilt by consistent actions repeated over time. Until those actions exist, giving someone unlimited access is not kindness. It is wishful thinking. The same truth applies in families, friendships, and relationships. A person may sincerely regret what they did, and she can genuinely wish them well. But regret does not automatically restore responsibility. An apology cannot erase a pattern that has been repeated over and over. This is where savage mode quietly changes her. She stops believing that healing means pretending nothing happened. She understands that she can move forward without inviting the same pain back into her life. That takes wisdom because many people confuse reconciliation with maturity. They believe every relationship should return to what it once was. She knows better. Some relationships are meant to continue. Some are meant to change. And some are meant to end. She no longer forces all 3 into the same outcome. The most powerful part of her transformation is this. She forgives so that her heart can be free. But she protects her boundaries so history does not repeat itself. That is not bitterness. That is emotional intelligence. She has learned that trust is one of the most valuable things a person can offer. Once it is shattered, rebuilding it takes far more than words. Until actions prove otherwise, forgiveness may open the door to peace. but it does not automatically hand back the key. Number 2, she learns that guilt is often someone else's survival strategy. One of the most eye-opening things a spicy Lady Sigma learns when she goes full savage mode is that guilt is not always a sign that she has done something wrong. Sometimes, guilt is simply proof that someone else is losing control over her. That realization changes the way she sees people forever. For a long time, every time she said no, chose herself, or set a boundary, the same pattern appeared. Someone would act disappointed. Someone would call her selfish. Someone would remind her of everything they had done for her. Before long, she would begin questioning herself. Maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe I should give in one more time. She thought the uncomfortable feeling inside her meant she had made the wrong decision. Then she started paying attention. She noticed that some people only talked about kindness when they wanted something. They only spoke about loyalty when she was trying to leave. They only reminded her about family when she refused to sacrifice herself again. Suddenly, she saw a pattern that had been hiding in plain sight. The guilt was not appearing because she had done something wrong. It appeared because someone else wanted her to change her mind. Think about the friend who disappears for months, but suddenly remembers you when they need money. The moment you politely refuse, they say, "I guess I know who my real friends are." Notice what just happened. Instead of respecting your decision, they quietly shifted the conversation to your character. Now, you are no longer deciding whether to lend money. You are defending whether you are a good friend. That is emotional manipulation. Or imagine an adult family member who expects you to cancel your own plans every time they need help. The first time you say you are unavailable, they sigh and say, "Family should always come first." It sounds noble. It even sounds moral. But if family only comes first when you are the one making sacrifices, something is wrong. A spicy Lady Sigma eventually learns to ask a question that changes everything. Would this person still call me selfish if our positions were reversed? Many times, the answer is painfully obvious. This is when savage mode quietly takes over. She stops treating guilt as automatic evidence that she has failed someone. Instead, she treats it like information. She asks where the feeling is coming from. Is it because she acted against her values? Or is it because someone is uncomfortable that they can no longer control her choices? Those are two completely different things. The people who benefited the most from her endless availability often struggle the hardest with her new boundaries. Not because she has become cruel, because their old strategy no longer works. That is the real transformation. She no longer mistakes pressure for love. She no longer confuses obligation with compassion, and she no longer accepts every guilty feeling as a verdict against her character. She understands that real love respects freedom. It does not depend on shame, fear, or emotional pressure to keep someone close. That is why her savage mode is so powerful. She does not stop caring about people. She simply stops allowing guilt to become the key that unlocks every door to her time, her energy, and her peace. Number 3, she stops mistaking familiar pain for love. Many people return to relationships because suffering feels familiar. Savage mode is choosing unfamiliar peace over familiar chaos. One of the most powerful shifts that happens when a spicy Lady Sigma goes full savage mode is that she stops confusing familiar pain with genuine love. At first, this sounds obvious. Why would anyone mistake pain for love? But the truth is, it happens more often than people realize. The human mind has a strange habit. It is not always drawn to what is healthy. It is often drawn to what feels familiar. That is why some people leave a toxic relationship only to find themselves choosing someone almost exactly the same. The names change, the faces change, but the emotional pattern stays the same. A spicy Lady Sigma eventually notices this cycle. She realizes she was not chasing happiness. She was chasing familiarity. Think about a relationship where every week followed the same script. There were beautiful moments that made her feel deeply loved. Then came the arguments, the silence, the broken promises, and the emotional distance. Just when she was ready to walk away, the apologies arrived, followed by a few good days. Then the cycle started all over again. After living through that long enough, something dangerous happens. Chaos starts feeling normal. Peace starts feeling unfamiliar. Now imagine meeting someone who is consistent. They do not play games. They do not disappear without explanation. They do not make love feel like a puzzle that has to be solved. Surprisingly, that kind of relationship can almost feel strange at first. Not because it lacks love, because it lacks drama. She begins to understand that she had been measuring love by emotional intensity instead of emotional safety. That realization changes everything. She no longer asks herself, how strongly do I feel about this person? She starts asking, how do I feel about myself when I am with this person? That question reveals far more than chemistry ever could. That if she constantly feels anxious, uncertain, or emotionally exhausted, she no longer calls it passion. She calls it what it is, a warning. One of the greatest lies people believe is that love is supposed to hurt. Real love will challenge you. It will require patience, honesty, and growth. But it should not leave you living in constant confusion. A healthy relationship should bring stability, not endless emotional survival. This is where savage mode quietly transforms her. She stops running back to people simply because they are familiar. She stops mistaking history for compatibility. She stops believing that strong feelings automatically mean she has found the right person. Instead, she chooses something that once felt unfamiliar. Peace. She discovers that peace is not boring. It is what emotional security feels like after years of unnecessary chaos. And once she experiences that kind of peace, something remarkable happens. The relationships that once seemed exciting no longer look romantic. They look exhausting. That is the real transformation. She no longer chooses what feels familiar. She chooses what helps her grow, protects her peace, and allows her heart to rest instead of constantly recovering. Number 4. She doesn't burn bridges. In most cases, she simply stops being the bridge everyone walks across. One of the biggest misunderstandings about a spicy Lady Sigma in savage mode is that people think she suddenly starts cutting everyone off. The truth is usually much quieter than that. She does not spend her time burning bridges. She simply stops being the bridge that everyone else has been walking across. There is a huge difference. For years, she may have been the person everyone could count on. She was the one who checked in first, kept conversations alive, remembered birthdays, solved family arguments, and made sure friendships did not fall apart. She was often the emotional glue holding everything together. Most people appreciated it. Some people simply expected it. The problem is that when you become the bridge, people get used to crossing it without ever thinking about what it costs to keep it standing. Think about the friend who only calls when they need advice. The family member who remembers you only when they need a favor. The coworker who is always happy to let you carry extra work because they know you will not complain. At first, she convinces herself that she is just being helpful. Then one day, she decides to stop. Not out of anger, not to teach anyone a lesson. She simply becomes curious. What happens if I stop doing all the work? The answer is often shocking. Some friendships go silent. Some relationships disappear. Some people who claimed they cared never reach out again. That hurts. But it also reveals something important. She was not holding the relationship together with love. She was holding it together with effort. There is a difference. This is why people suddenly say, you have changed. But if you listen carefully, what they are often saying is something very different. You stopped making my life easier. That is not the same thing. A spicy Lady Sigma begins to understand that unlimited access creates unrealistic expectations. The more available she is, the more people assume she will always be available. So, she changes the rules. She still helps, but she is no longer on permanent duty. She still listens, but she is not everyone's emotional emergency contact. She still loves, but she no longer sacrifices herself to prove it. The surprising part is that the people who truly value her do not complain about these changes. They adapt. They check on her. They begin giving the same care they have been receiving. Only the people who benefited from one-sided access struggle with her new boundaries. That is why savage mode is often misunderstood. It is not about becoming difficult. It is about becoming balanced. She finally realizes that a bridge is built to connect two sides. If everyone keeps crossing while only one person carries the weight, sooner or later the bridge begins to crack. She refuses to let that happen anymore. She would rather disappoint people by becoming less available than disappoint herself by spending another lifetime carrying everyone else's weight. That is not cruelty. That is wisdom earned through experience. Number 5. She starts measuring relationships by energy recovery. Instead of asking, do I love them? She asks, who am I after spending time with them? One of the wisest changes that happens when a spicy Lady Sigma goes full savage mode is that she stops judging relationships by how much she loves someone. Instead, she starts paying attention to who she becomes after spending time with them. That question changes everything. Most people ask, do I love this person? She asks something much deeper. Who am I when I leave this conversation? At first, that may sound like a strange way to measure a relationship. But think about it. There are people you spend an hour with, and afterwards you feel lighter. Your mind feels clear. You laugh more. You feel inspired to work on your goals. You go home with more energy than you had before. Then there are other people. After every conversation, you feel emotionally tired. You replay everything that was said. You question yourself. Your confidence quietly disappears. Even when nothing dramatic happened, something inside you feels heavier. That feeling is not random. It is information. Imagine meeting a friend every weekend. Every conversation turns into gossip, complaints, and criticism about other people. At first, it feels like harmless conversation, but after a few months, you notice something. You have become more negative without realizing it. You complain more. You trust people less. You expect the worst from everyone. The relationship did not just take your time. It slowly changed the way you see the world. Now imagine another friend. Whenever you leave their company, you feel encouraged. They challenge your thinking without putting you down. They celebrate your progress instead of competing with it. Even difficult conversations leave you feeling respected instead of emotionally drained. That is the difference. A spicy Lady Sigma begins to understand that every relationship leaves fingerprints on her mind. Some people expand your world. Others quietly shrink it. This is why she no longer ignores how she feels after spending time with someone. She knows that emotions often notice what logic has not caught up with yet. That if she constantly needs hours or even days to recover after seeing someone, she no longer dismisses it by saying, that is just how they are. She starts asking a better question. Why does being around this person require me to recover at all? That question often reveals truths she had been avoiding. Savage mode is not about surrounding yourself only with perfect people. Those people do not exist. It is about choosing relationships that leave you stronger instead of smaller. Relationships that challenge you without breaking your spirit. Relationships that bring peace instead of constant emotional repair. She finally understands that love alone is not enough. Respect matters. Peace matters. Growth matters. The right people do not simply take up space in your life. They leave you with more hope, more clarity, and more of yourself than when they found you. Once she learns to measure relationships that way, she never goes back to confusing emotional exhaustion with meaningful connection. Number 6. Her kindness develops boundaries stronger than anger. Anyone can explode. Very few people can calmly say no. One of the greatest transformations that happens when a spicy Lady Sigma goes full savage mode is that her kindness does not disappear. It becomes protected. There was a time when she believed the only way to stop people from crossing the line was to become angry. She thought she had to reach her breaking point before anyone would finally take her seriously. So, she stayed quiet, tolerated more than she should have, and kept giving people one more chance. Then, when the pressure became too much, she exploded. Afterward, she often felt guilty. She wondered if she had overreacted. She even apologized for protecting herself. One day, she realized something that changed everything. The problem was never that she was too kind. The problem was that her kindness had no gate. Everyone could walk in. Everyone could make demands. Everyone expected another chance because there was nothing standing between her compassion and their behavior. That is when her kindness grew something it had never had before. Boundaries. Think about a beautiful garden. The flowers are not protected because the gardener hates people. They are protected because beautiful things cannot survive if everyone is allowed to walk across them. The fence is not an act of anger. It is an act of care. She begins to understand that her heart deserves the same protection. Imagine a coworker who keeps asking her to take on extra work because they know she finds it difficult to refuse. Before she would smile, say yes, and quietly carry the stress home with her. Now she simply says, I cannot do that. No long explanation. No nervous laughter. No apology for having limits. Or imagine someone who repeatedly speaks to her with disrespect and then expects everything to be normal the next day. Instead of arguing for hours or trying to prove a point, she calmly steps back. She becomes less available. She allows her actions to say what endless conversations never could. That quiet response surprises people. They expected tears. They expected anger. They expected another emotional debate. Instead, they meet someone whose peace is no longer open for negotiation. That is what makes this transformation so powerful. Almost anyone can react in anger. Anger is often immediate. It is loud. It demands attention. But calm boundaries require something much harder. They require self-respect that does not depend on the other person's understanding. A spicy lady Sigma no longer says no because she is upset. She says no because she has learned that every yes carries a cost. If saying yes means betraying her peace, ignoring her values, or sacrificing her well-being, then no becomes the healthiest answer she can give. And once she makes that decision, she does not spend days chasing people for forgiveness or trying to convince them that her boundary was reasonable. She understands that mature people respect limits even when they do not benefit from them. Those who become angry were often enjoying the version of her that had none. That is the quiet power of savage mode. She is still kind. She is still compassionate. She is still capable of loving deeply. But her kindness is no longer an unlocked door. It has wisdom standing at the entrance. And that wisdom knows exactly when to welcome people in and when to quietly close the gate. Number 7. Savage mode isn't becoming heartless. It's becoming unavailable for emotional exploitation. The biggest misconception is that she becomes colder to the end of the day. This is the truth that most people never understand about a spicy lady Sigma in savage mode. She has not become heartless. She has become unavailable for emotional exploitation. Those are two completely different things. From the outside, people notice that she says no more often. She walks away sooner. She shares less. She no longer rushes to fix every misunderstanding or rescue every relationship. They assume she has changed for the worse. What they never ask is what happened before she changed. They did not see the years she spent carrying problems that were never hers. They did not see the sleepless nights spent worrying about people who rarely worried about her. They did not see the endless second chances, the broken promises she chose to believe, or the quiet disappointment that built up one experience at a time. People often judge the boundary. They rarely notice the history that created it. The biggest misunderstanding is believing that kindness and self-sacrifice are the same thing. They are not. Real kindness is given freely. Self-sacrifice is giving until there is nothing left of yourself. For too long, she believed that loving people meant saying yes, even when she was exhausted. She believed forgiveness meant pretending the hurt never happened. She believed loyalty meant staying, even when staying was slowly breaking her spirit. Life eventually taught her otherwise. She learned that compassion without boundaries becomes permission. Permission for people to keep taking. Permission for people to keep demanding. Permission for people to keep expecting more while giving less. That is not love. That is imbalance. So, she changed. She still loves deeply. She still celebrates the people who deserve to be celebrated. She still forgives because she refuses to let bitterness become the author of her future. She still believes people can change. But she also understands something she once ignored. Hope is not a contract. Forgiveness is not an invitation. Love is not unlimited access. Think about the front door of a home. You can be the most welcoming person in the world, but you still lock your door at night. Not because you hate people, because you value what is inside. She finally begins treating her heart the same way. She stops handing out keys to people who have already shown they cannot be trusted with them. She no longer confuses endless availability with genuine love. She no longer mistakes emotional exhaustion for loyalty. She no longer believes that suffering in silence is proof of a good heart. That is the real meaning of savage mode. It is not about becoming harder. It is about becoming wiser. It is not about punishing people. It is about protecting the parts of herself that she spent years giving away without realizing how valuable they were. The most remarkable part is that the right people are not offended by this version of her. They respect her boundaries. They appreciate her honesty. They never ask her to shrink herself just to make them comfortable. Only those who benefited from her lack of boundaries call her cold. Everyone else simply calls her healthy. That is why her savage mode is so powerful. She does not destroy people. She does not waste her life seeking revenge. She does something far more difficult. She stops allowing people to slowly destroy pieces of who she is. And the moment she makes that choice, she does not lose her kindness. She finally gives some of it back to the person who had gone without it for the longest time, herself. Final word, sometimes the greatest transformation is not becoming someone new. It is finally refusing to abandon who you have always been. That is what happens when a spicy Lady Sigma goes full savage mode. She does not lose her heart. She stops handing it to people who have never learned how to hold it with care. She does not stop loving. She simply stops confusing love with endless sacrifice. She does not stop forgiving. She just understands that forgiveness does not require giving someone another opportunity to repeat the same lesson. The people who truly know her will notice that her kindness is still there. Her compassion is still there. Her willingness to help is still there. The difference is that her peace is no longer available at any price. She has learned that protecting herself is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of wisdom. If there is one lesson to take away from this video, it is this. The strongest version of a person is rarely the loudest or the hardest. It is the version that has learned where love should be given, where trust should be earned, and where boundaries should never be negotiated. Now, I would love to hear from you. Which point in this video challenged the way you think the most, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments because your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. If you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another conversation like this. Until next time, remember this. The most powerful change in life is not becoming impossible to hurt. It is becoming wise enough to stop volunteering for the same pain that once convinced you it was love. Thank you for watching and God bless you.